Welcome back to Playing the System. I know it's been a long time, a really long time. This interview for this episode with the amazing Jas Shaw from Jas Shaw solo fame, Simian Mobile Disco, Simian. He's also worked with many other great artists, including Panda and many, many more. Was recorded about 2 years ago. In between those, today and 2 years ago, I discussed it in this episode actually, took on a course leader role at the University of Westminster in music and was responsible for rewriting the course, which in academic language is revalidating. So I talk about that in my interview with Jas. And it kind of overwhelmed me a lot. It did totally overwhelm me. And this Friday, I am leaving the role and leaving the University of Westminster after 10 years and going to the University for the Creative Arts, not to be a course leader, to be a senior lecturer. So it will be less stressful, less time consuming, and will open up space for more creativity, writing academic articles, thinking about music, making music, all that kind of stuff. And it's something as creatives out there I encourage you all to do. It was following the revelations of the brilliant 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman that I'm mildly obsessed with. But time management theories don't really work. You kind of pack more in. You get up earlier, you get knackered. That's kind of what I did. And it didn't work. And what actually I had to do was make an incredibly painful decision to leave a role and a job that I loved, that I was really engaged in, super engaged. And it meant that I had to leave, or decide to leave. And this decide's a really interesting idea. The word decide is connected to the word homicide and suicide, decide, and it's to kill the other option. So yeah, I killed the option of being a course leader and have hopefully taken a less stressful job that's going to open up more family time, more space, more creative time. And I encourage you all, if it's important to you, to do the same. And that is what Oliver Burkeman talks about in his time management book, in the knowledge that time management doesn't work. Ultimately, if you've got 15 things on your list of things that are important to you, it's not the things that are not on the list that are going to get in the way of the first 5 things that are important to you. It's the things that are listed numbers 6 to 15, and crucially 6 to 10. They're the challenges that you're going to face. So yeah, it's been a massive 2-year journey for me. I feel things I'm really, really proud of in the course. So I've reduced essays by 89% and feeling pretty good about that in light of ChatGPT, which has thrown academics into uproar. So the assessments are much more practical, they're much more real world, they're much more focused on musical creativity, production, performance and business. So I'm super proud of that, and looked very closely at diversity metrics and things like that to make the course much fairer. So I'm super proud of that, as well as bringing in modules that are aligned with current industry practice, things like songwriting, track and top line, data and analytics, things like that. So massive shout out to any of my colleagues if you're listening. Thanks for the incredible 3-year run as course leader. Thank you for the support and the faith and belief in me to do the job. And crucially, thanks to the students. You are amazing, source of huge inspiration, life, majesty at being a creative person. So you've been the real lifeblood for this, and I'm sorry to leave. So big shout out to all of you, if any of you are listening. It's been an amazing run. Now it's time for down the rabbit hole. Before we get into the first cut of the immense Jas Shaw talk, where we talk about what my wife does for a job, stay tuned if you want to know. We talk about parenting and the challenge of being a creative person with kids. We talk about a lot about the nature of arts education, which is quite interesting, and Jas did a science-based education, I had an arts-based education, so we talk a lot about that, and we talk about kids and music and, you know, approaches to teaching kids music. So that's all coming up in this episode. And yeah, now we're going to go down the rabbit hole. Okay, hi, welcome back to Down the Rabbit Hole. For today's Down the Rabbit Hole, I've been really inspired by Jamie Liddell's massive modular looper. So I thought I'd try and create my own. And here it is. I've been working on it for some time. And I decided to set myself the creative limitation of a 104 Intellijel HP case, because for me, I've been into modular for a while now, and I actually believe that a lot of the fun comes in trying to contain the modules into complete systems. And yeah, for me, that's where I find a lot of the creativity. Obviously, I usually don't manage it and have to use pod breakout boxes, but hey, that's also the fun, right? If you just need that extra bit, it's modular, so you can add extra stuff in. I'm just going to take these leads out because that was a little experiment that I'm not quite ready to do, and I don't want it to be any more confusing than it already is. Okie dokie, so let me explain how it works. So I have audio coming into my mixer over here. Let's just give you a mixer shot. There we go. So yeah, audio is coming in on the mixer, and you can see all my nicely coloured labels down there to detail everything that's going in. So yeah, audio goes into the mixer, and then that gives me routing options to send it to different processes. So I've got mine set up to the 4-track, to a UA tape machine, and to this Intellijel case where it comes into the inputs here and then goes in through this line in which these wires here go through to this mult, and then this mult goes down into the ER301 inputs. So let's just stop that whizzing, and if I play some notes on the Juno and route it through, woo, there you can see the ins are going into that input there, which is great. And then the ER301 is set up as a sampler. I've created my own custom looper. So let's just have a look at that. Let's unpack it, and I've packaged it all up into a nice tidy little folder. So now we're at kind of the first layer of the custom looper. So we can see reset and punch coming from Pam's workout. Now what this is ultimately doing is it's resetting the loop buffer and starting a punch in, and that's just happening automatically. I think it's on about 15 seconds, but obviously we're only going to get as far as the reset trig. So if I play the keys, play the Juno, we will then be able to record into the constantly cycling loop buffer, and I've set up using this great Fader F8R, which has I2C port behind this and the ER301. So that basically just means I don't need any cables, which I know is kind of the point of modular, but for me I get a bit overwhelmed when there is just spaghetti everywhere, and I like to try and keep the modular interfaceable. So we've got, and I've labelled these up nice because I kept forgetting. So this left one here is dub. So if I hold down the Juno with dub on, it's constantly looping, and then I can pull dub off and it will capture the audio. So now that has recorded the audio into the loop buffer, and this is a VCA on all, and I've got it set up for 3 different samples. sample playback devices. So if I put the all up, that's the VCA for everything that's in the ER301, and if I fade this up, we should be able to hear the first sample buffer. And there it is. How cool is that? Now, this is where it gets really, really fun, right? Because not only do I have that is on a standard pitch, I've also set up the ER301 to have octave or pitch on this first sample playback. So I can raise that up an octave, which is cool. I've got a second sample playback an octave down. And I've also got a pitch on that. Which is a lot of fun. And this is where it gets really exciting. So for my third sample, I've got it set up as a granular. So, and on this, I can control the pitch, but I can also control the length, the start, and the speed. And another pitch here. How cool is that? So I've got quite a lot of control in my 301, which I like. Now that is going from there, the output of the 301 is being malted into beads, clouds, and Arbhar, and then all of that is going through Magneto. So, I can turn up the Magneto. And just for maximum control, because that's what I like most with modular, I've got everything passing through these two Mutable Instruments veils. So that's the beads, clouds, and I can now record into the Arbhar sample buffer as well. And there's Arbhar. Super cool, right? So I've got a lot of control over this stuff. Shut it all down for silence. So on top of that, I've also got everything running through my wondrous Octatrack. So I can put something in, create this crazy world in the modular looper, and then I can, from that, I can create patterns in the old Octatrack. So let's give that a go. Boom. So let's just run that. So I'm going to create a chord on the Juno. Gonna dub. So now that'll be captured in the 301. There it is. We can send it through beads and clouds and Arbhar. Fade in some granular. Now we can capture it all on the Octatrack. There she is. So now that is on the Octatrack. Of course, what I love so much about the Octatrack is the scenes. colour. Bloody love that octa track. And that's sort of it, you know. It's a system that facilitates a lot of spontaneity, flow, and creativity. So yeah, I hope you like that. Welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole, live looper. And if you'd like a deep dive on the ER301 and how I set all that up, I'm happy to do it. But you'd be better off going to Neil Parfitt's channel, because I learn everything from him, because he really is the master. So yeah. Wicked. Enjoy the next section with Jas Shaw, and I'll see you next week for the next Down the Rabbit Hole. Future things. I'm just also turning off my self view. I found on Zoom you can hide self view.
Oh, can you do that?
Yeah.
That sounds fucking great. Hang on a minute.
Oh, mate, it's a game changer.
Yeah, because then you don't go, oh no, they're looking at that. Oh.
Yeah. Have you found it? If you click on your picture, there's a little sub menu.
Oh yes. Pin. What's that?
I think that's like pin yourself to be always on view. Because it's like imagine talking to people. Imagine like you had a hat with like 2 mirrored panels coming down, and you were having a conversation with someone. Like that's what talking on Zoom is like, isn't it? Like you don't see yourself when you're in conversation with someone. You don't see yourself unless you're talking in front of a mirror. But most of the time you don't.
Which is your own stupid fault. Yeah,
which is your own stupid fault, right? But you don't see yourself. And on Zoom, for the last year, I've had this like, unfortunately, you get more distracted by you than anything else in life.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And now I'm feeling like I found I can hide myself. It's actually making me a bit anxious because it's like I've disappeared.
So the transition back to modern life. Like it's okay, we can have this conversation, but can you hold this picture of me slightly to your side?
Yeah. So I can feel reassured that I do exist.
Wow. Yeah, that's it's funny because I guess so. Are you doing teaching over Zoom?
Yeah, so coronavirus has had this effect because I, do music and my wife is a balloon twister as well as a musician. But coronavirus pretty much, she's a balloon twister, professional balloonist.
Wow. I just love how casually you just sort of glossed over it.
I know, well, I have this conversation with everyone.
Of course,
everyone stops me and reels me back. They're like, hang on a minute, what?
Yeah.
Your wife is a what? I'm like, she's a balloon twister.
That's not how you met.
That's not how we met. We met because she's also a musician.
Right, yeah, that's the common factor. It makes more sense.
Yeah. But you're going to love this, Jas.
Yeah.
Do you know the name of the company she worked for as a balloon twister? This is a work of genius. Ministry of Fun.
Wow.
Of all the places, surely people want to work. It's like, I want to sign myself up to the Ministry of Fun. I want to work there.
That is...
And they were responsible. They were one of the first people to do those big pop-up crazes. Do you remember when advertising went pop-up? And you'd see kind of flash mobs.
Event-based.
They were the sort of first flash mob-based UK promoters. So like Cadbury's and all these companies would hire Ministry of Fun to sort of go and take over London Bridge or whatever and do this sort of crazy thing on it.
It's starting to sound more ministry than fun now, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
You see how the ministry got in?
Yeah.
The fun was sort of... It kind of... You go Ministry of... And they get fun. Oh, yeah, fun. No, fine.
Yeah.
Do we need to ask about the ministry bit? You don't. It's fine. Concentrate on the fun. It was fine.
But there's something quite bizarrely Orwellian about it that I really like.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's layered.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there. Wow. That is a maverick. It's a very satisfying to know that is a job.
Yeah.
Right? It's one of those things that you just think, it's just someone who has always wanted to do it and just does it in their spare time and just has to do some menial task. But she's been doing music and ballooning.
Yeah.
She's fucking crushing it.
I know. So, parenting was a bit of a shock.
Yeah, I bet. That must have been, in the kind of kindest sense of the word, disappointing in comparison to ballooning. Although there are some transferable skills. So
yeah, there are. We did meet through the balloons, but coronavirus kind of wiped that out and wiped me out.
Yeah,
enough, and we were just both a little bit under the government rules. They didn't say this, but their rules were 51% of your income, right? It was like the majority. So there was the rules for some financial support were the majority, which when you're a Tory it's 51%.
Yeah,
it's not.
It
the
really
amount
is,
you
isn't
need
it?
to live, it's 51%.
Yeah.
And we were both 48%.
How on earth did you work? I suppose you worked it out literally by income.
Yeah, I just did the income, divided it up. We were both on 48% self-employed.
Both of you?
Because she'd been on maternity leave with our kid.
That's like your own personal Brexit loss.
Yeah, it was exactly. Yeah, Brexit 2.
And then 3.
And then 3.
Fuck all of this.
Yeah, and at the same time I got offered a full-time job at Westminster Uni.
Yeah.
Writing and running their music course.
Brilliant.
So I'm now the boss of that, which is, it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's, it's big. There's like 300 students and 30 staff, and I kind of run it. I've never run anything in my life apart from away from jobs.
No, that's not true. Okay, so you say that.
I've run bands.
You say
Megan
that.
said to me, think of it like you're MDing, the proms version of your band.
Yeah.
I was like, I can do that. That's no props. I can do that. Yeah.
I think, because I've seen this with a lot of mates who have been in bands, and obviously, there's a spread of people from Muppets to just, to people who want to do something, and music happened to be the thing they want to do. And the horrible thing about leaving the music industry is that the perception of it is that you're basically an unemployable drug addict. Right?
Yeah.
And
it's true,
I think I've met people that are unemployable drug addicts. There's no question about it. I think I've employed some of them, in fact.
I think I definitely have.
Yeah, you definitely have. But the other side of it is that in order to be in a band, you have to be really organised and really driven, and it's actually a lot easier to do most other jobs because someone just says, right, are you qualified to do this? And you go, I am. And they go, right, we'll do it. And then once you've done it, come back and I'll mark it and tell you if it's right. Whereas with a band, it's so much less structured. And it's just there's a real weird mismatch between the level of just capability, just base level capability and drive and trust. Like, you don't want people in your band that you can't trust, right? Yeah. So virtually anyone who's been in a band for a long period of time, unless the whole band are twats, they're not a twat. It's got to be the case.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't do it. There's no way you do it. So I suppose it's a long way of me saying that actually being in a band, if you can do it for a long period of time and have any degree of success and not hate each other at the end of it, it's reasonable likelihood that you're actually probably worth employing to someone, so I think that Westminster made a good decision.
Well, thanks for the endorsement.
They called me beforehand to check. I gave them a nod. They always do.
They went down the who's not a twat list, and of course they was at number 1 in the list. People in the world who are not a twat. Jas Shaw is not a twat.
Is he a twat? No, not to my knowledge.
This sounds
He's
like
not on
the
my
kind of
list.
meeting the Ministry of Fun would have.
Exactly, yeah.
Is he a twat? Is he not a twat? Right, you're employed.
Yeah, I've got to say, in a sort of a mixture of due diligence and just personally wanting to sort of catch up with what you have been up to, because it's something that we spoke very briefly between the last time I'd physically seen you, and it was really interesting. And it seemed like you were in a real kind of period of change.
Yeah.
And then so to hear the podcast was really interesting because it basically made me want to do your course. Because you and what's the name of it seemed like it was you and one other person who was doing most of the talking, unless two other people in your band have got very similar voices, who were doing most of the talking on the podcast. And it seemed like both of you approach music in a way that I can identify with and that I feel like I could learn a lot from.
That's really interesting.
And it freaked, like, because I did, like an arrogant tool, I did science course thinking I could always teach myself art because it's a doddle, right? You know, once you know this, you know, thinking that like if you're going to learn everything, it'd be quite difficult to learn the science. So I'll get someone else to teach me that. I'll just pick the art up as I go. That'll be fine. Yeah.
And how do you feel about that decision now? Because, you know, this podcast is really about creativity as a system. Yeah. You know, as how it all interacts together. The government is hounding arts-based courses, telling us to get jobs in cyber, removing funding. So how do you feel about that decision now? You know,
decreasingly confident. You know what? I think it's just a very strong indicator of how minimal a grasp I had, really, of what an arts degree would be in any capacity. And my guess, because I've got two children, the oldest of which is now 14, and I can sort of see it in him as well, to a certain extent, that there's a sense of like, you know, there's knowledge and then there's just chat, right? And like basically maths, physics, chemistry, which are the subjects that I did, that's the knowledge, and the rest of it's just chat, you know? And I think it's because it's so difficult to, it's so nebulous, right? A lot of the kind of more what you learn, what I believe, I guess you learn from an arts course, what I've learned from ages doing, broadly speaking, art, isn't that easy. Like, you can't really, it's not very easy to express in a tidy way. And because it's quite difficult to express in a tidy way, I think people don't grasp it. I certainly didn't grasp it. And then because you don't grasp it, you don't value it, and then you don't chase it down. And for sure, I think this cuts across to other sides of things, you know, like humanities, which seem, I think there's a sense in, certainly in like maths and physics, there's a sense in which the humanities are like basically just pants physics. And that catastrophically misses the point. That was a very long answer, wasn't it?
That was a good answer. And it's something, my immediate reaction when I was, you know, when I saw the get a job in cyber ad, which was just yet another colossal misfooting from the government, especially off the back of what was considered the decade's greatest rebrand of Britishness, which was our Olympic Games ceremony, prior to the Olympic Games, it was considered a joke that we could even do an Olympic Games. And people were just sitting back, rubbing their hands and waiting for the disaster to unfurl with a kind of only a British glee could take joy in watching our own demise on a global stage.
Yeah, that's something to be proud of.
Yeah. And then we smashed it. The ceremony was considered a great success. I wouldn't say I'm a leading expert in pomp and ceremony, to be honest, but I did watch it and thought, that I think we've done a good job of this, and what we really celebrated, among other things, the NHS, and to me the celebration was creativity. This is who we are. We are British. We are creative. Our culture is this individual creativity, from the invention of the internet through to, Johnny Ive, who designed iPhones, through to all of our music, literature. And to go from sort of that position to get a job in cyber, I thought, how can you remove arts from business, from success, from entrepreneurialism, from neoliberalism? What is Apple without those iconic images designed by artists? By images, I mean iPhone, the iMac. What is Apple without that? What is Nike without its art? It's just a shoe. Apple is just another computer. It's just another crap shoe, isn't it? It's the art on the shoe that changes the value of the shoe from 10 pence to Air Jordan. I mean, how much does a pair of 80s Air Jordans cost you? 5k, 100k? I don't even know. But I don't know. But I don't know.
Yeah, you're asking people who
but an immeasurable sum of money.
Yeah. For sure. It's a mixture of the art and the understanding of culture that has made those things.
I mean,
worthwhile.
Why did Google smash it? Because there's nothing on the homepage. It was just a white page with Google and a box. That's one of the greatest pieces of modern art. The Google homepage. Every other search engine was just littered, wasn't it, with stuff. It was just like...
I can't even remember. That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the algorithm was key, sorting the information, but the second biggest asset that drove Google's success was that homepage.
That is interesting.
So you can't remove art, and this is what I think is so frustrating about these misunderstandings of what it means to be an artist in the biggest sense of the word, and the training. So clearly, Jas, you picked it up along the way. Now,
that was the plan. That was always the plan. So basically, look at me now.
It did work. The first time I encountered you and your music was by accident in Edinburgh. And I went to a show with my dad to see, I can't remember the band I went to see because I didn't enjoy it at all, but I love the support band, which was Simian. You supported one of these, what Mojo would call like new country or something.
Oh, band. Sparkle Horse.
Sparkle Horse.
Oh,
you supported Sparkle Horse.
You didn't like Sparkle Horse? I've got to say, they were a little hit and miss on the road.
I loved the albums, but the gig was a little bit, I was in a pretty low place anyway. That was not the gig I needed at the time.
That's interesting. I forgot.
But you supported Sparkle Horse, and I first encountered your music then and loved it and went and bought the vinyl.
Wow. Pretty rad that your dad took you to see Sparkle Horse.
Well, my dad comes up a lot in these conversations. My dad is off the charts. Off music coolness. He was playing me records from Arhoolie, which is a 19 sort of, I don't really know, but he was playing me 1920s and 1930s Mississippi field recordings when I was 6.
Wow. I'd argue that might be too early.
Yeah, well, I think it was, but he was going straight in, and he brought me up on such. To say incredible music is the wrong way to see it. He brought me up to be so curious about music and to always keep going deeper and further.
Yeah.
And when the school asked me to write an essay on music, he was like, "This is the book you need, son." And he gave me Alan Lomax's book of his blues field recordings.
Oh, wow.
My essay smashed it because obviously,
I bet it did. Damn,
that's the one.
Basically, what you're saying is you had a head start on the whole rest of us.
I had a real musical head start, yeah. And he just really shaped my musical development in a way that I think is so positive, and you would look at now as being the right way to go about it. So when I was a little bit interested in sound, he went and bought me a 4-track tape machine. Didn't know how to work it, but just gave it to me. And most importantly, played music with me. And I see a lot of parents say, "Oh, my kid is not practicing."
Yeah.
And I say, well, how do you practice? And they're like, well, they kind of get on with it in their room. And I was like, and when do they, not play in their room on their own? And they're like, oh, well, when they go to their lesson. I'm like, so their musical existence is playing the violin on their own in the room and then going and getting told off by the teacher. I'm like, and you're saying that it's a surprise to you that they're not enjoying it.
It's not the most enticing, is it?
It's like, right, okay, so we're going to get into football, right. Half an hour a week, you've got to kick the ball up against the wall. And then for the other half an hour a week, you want to go and get shouted at by the football coach. And there's no game, there's no other people.
Yeah.
So I'm like, my dad really taught me to music as a social thing, to do it. And I think that's crucial.
That is, that's interesting and a bit worrying, actually. Not worrying.
You got your kids locked in a room with a violin.
Keep playing, child number one. No, that's sort of the opposite, actually. It's worrying because I have taken sort of the opposite tack to that, largely because my experience of music sort of became meaningful to me when I started finding it for myself. And before that, when I was told something was good, I would just be like, right, that's good, and then and this is good as well, is it? I see what you mean, right? And so I remember reading, like at the time it was like Enemy and Melody Maker. I'd just buy them both, and just some gobshite in there would be, oh, I like this band, or I don't like that band, and then the next week you would just go, oh, I like that band, I don't like that band, And then I remember they had like a bad review of some band I liked, and it was sort of a very odd experience because it made me realise arrogantly, like a 14-year-old would, they're basically wrong. Like this likely 20-year-old who had listened to hundreds, maybe thousands of records more than me and had been out to real clubs, they haven't really grasped it. I had. And that sort of, on one level, that's stupid because it is just arrogant. But like on another level, it made me kind of not unpack any more music. I just was, at that point, I would occasionally still buy it because, it just become a habit. But at that point, I think I started to kind of maybe take response. At a similar age as well. Like it's an age where you feel like you need your own identity. And I think that I was starting to build that identity based on the media, right? Like it's slightly different to now, but it's comparable. You've got kind of people who have got profile in the media and they just have opinions, and that's that's fine. But if some and the thing, it's difficult because you do, like, a lot of people, you know, they'll listen to a lot of records and piles out the good ones, saves you a lot of time, and it can mean that you hear things that you wouldn't otherwise be exposed to. But there's a trade-off with it where I think sometimes you don't do your own, is this good? Like, is this actually working on me? Or am I just liking it because it got very highly rated on a blog or whatever, you know, this particular media outlet that is highly regarded. And it's obviously not that one removes the other, but there's a danger that you don't interrogate things quite as... Interrogate's maybe a bit of a strong word, but...
Something the Ministry of Fun might
do. Ministry... not much fun, is it? But yeah, like, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like when music comes in, like, I try not to... Like, there's quite a lot of records that, like, if I've read some stuff about them, I just won't listen to them. Sometimes for like a year or so. Like, I've still not listened to the two most recent Autechre records, Sign, and then there's another one which I've not done yet, because I've read a bunch of stuff about it, and I feel like I just won't. All I'll hear is somebody else's opinion all the way through it. Yeah, that needs to sort of subside so that I can, like, I don't know. It just won't be a kind of. I won't hear it. You know, it will just be on while I'm there. It's
a really interesting perspective. So do you feel like you seek that, would you call that an authentic connection, a disillusioned connection, a pure connection? What are you seeking there?
I'm nervous of the word authentic.
I know, because it's a loaded word.
It is, yeah. It basically is a word for selling jeans, isn't it? It's a... Yeah.
It almost means the opposite.
Yeah, it's like there's just... It brings some baggage with it that I don't think we need. I think that...
What about like a physical experience then, rather than an intellectual or mental one? Are you seeking...
What sort of physical experience are we... What do you mean?
Well, I mean, where music can move you, you know, it can give you like goosebumps, it can move you physically. And that music has this incredible way of almost bypassing mental processes, which, as I know, is impossible biologically, but it seems to have a direct route in to what you could call soul or spirit. It seems to find its way, and we can't close our ears in the same way we can close our eyes. And I wonder as well, I've thought a lot about this. Apparently hearing is one of the first, if not the first sense to develop in babies. And the amniotic fluid in the womb is incredibly sound conducive. So music and sound is the first thing that goes in. And I wonder what the connection is between that first sense as a baby and our experiences of music. But it seems to me that maybe you're wanting that primal connection with it rather than a filtered cultural connection.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to unpack it, you know, and I think I've got quite used to switching that radar on and off. You know, being a kind of music producer, you have to you switch it on and you go, right, you know, that's too loud, no, do all of that, and then you've got to quite quickly turn it off and just, you know, listen to it as a whole and see just whether you like it. And I can't, like, I think that there's just I remember just hearing people talking about a particular, I can't even remember what record it was, but like a particular record, and they were like, oh, you know, I really like this about it, and I really like that about it, and, you know, I don't like this about it. And it seemed like the process of deciding whether they liked it became quite like a sort of enumerating process where they'd go, I like how in tune, tick, the singer is. I like the words, tick. I like that they use a banjo, tick. I don't really, you do know what I mean? Okay, so they're sort of, and this process of unpacking the record into elements that they might like or dislike. And then effectively you just look at your two piles and you go, this one's bigger, I like this record. Whereas I think that that process really is like proper wood for the trees situation. What you've done is you've looked at like each separate element and you've not really engaged with it as a whole object. And it's something that I have to just constantly remind myself to do, like, you know, from years and years of just, you know, I'll hear something, I'll be like, oh man, like the hi-hats sound awful on this. Like, okay, but that shouldn't inform whether I like this record. Like, let's just take a step back. Like, is this working on me? Like, do I feel any, like, am I feeling anything? Like, am I having thoughts from it? And somebody else's review is just noise at that point. Do you see what I mean? It's like it's noise. It's like mental noise that gets in the way. It's just another layer of mental noise because there's all of it. There's all the noise in my head as well of like me going, you know, engineering this, that, you know, mix, compression. Like you need to kind of squash all of that stuff out the way and just try and just be really simple. Like like nothing clever about it. Like, do I like it? That simple. Like, did you like it? Right? Like, and almost like down to like just a binary level. Like, did you like it? Yes or no? I don't want to know how much you liked it or in which ways you liked it. Like, was it good? You know, like so simple. And all of that just all the extra clever stuff, all the extra cultural stuff, all of that stuff, it seems to distract away from the real idiot level that's all I really want, to be honest. Like when I listen to someone's record, like I just want to get a sense of like whether I sound so dumb now. Like the more I say it, the stupider it sounds. Did you like it? Do you like the biscuit? You know, it's like it is kind of it's like a real low level of affirmation, but it's really like at the end of it, it's the only important one.
So yes, that was episode 1 of the amazing Jas Shaw interview. There's more to come. So next week we will be looking more in depth at Jas's creative process and his use of sequencers and modulars and stuff like that, which is really exciting. Plus the Down the Rabbit Hole next week will feature me exploring these concepts that Jas Shaw uses in the creation of his music, which is really cool. And I just want to say a massive thank you to you if you're still here at the end. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a supporter of the show. If you want to reach out, send me any music or any thoughts or ideas, please do at mattgoodison@mac.com. And yeah, happy to hear your thoughts. Stay well, stay creative, stay engaged, and I'll see you next week. Bye.